So, because I'm a very weird person who notices weird consistencies between things, as I was recently watching through The Chaotically Good Barbarian by Dungeon Soup, I got curious as to what the timeline of events in the Dungeon Soup timeline is. And so I decided to spend my time making timeline. Editor James. Cut to video, James. As you can see, I am wearing pristine squirt of lemon merch for today's video. I bought a bunch of shirts online because I wanted to promote, and it worked out really well because I got them just before I came to film this. So, back to audio, James. Also, Mr. and Mrs. Soup, if you're looking for voice actors, I am more than willing to join the party, as it were, because my voice acting is layered in my autism, so you know it's good. Let's start by eliminating a select few videos from the list of canon videos, as this is where I immediately go against the grain by determining that the canon is different from what Mr. Soup says it is. On his channel, Mr. Soup has a playlist called the Dungeon Soup Canon, but it excludes 3 very important videos. The Gnome Quest videos. I understand why, since they're seemingly an animated version of a campaign rather than anything set in the same universe. But as we'll get into, there are some references that I just can't possibly ignore. So the 3 main Gnome Quest episodes are part of the canon currently, until I get disproven. Probably because once the video comes out, the day before it comes out, a new video is going to come out. And you watch. You're editing, James. If you are still editing when a new video comes out, put it here. So, as I was editing the video, the latest episode, I Have No Luck and I Must Scream released. And while it's quite good, it does mean I have to add it to the timeline now. So, enjoy that when we get to that point. You'll know because of my crusty-ass mic. But I think these 5 videos are not part of the canon. Firstly is The Siren's Ring. It's a thesis film, it's really cool, but the siren featured in it is a different siren from either Gnome Quest Episode 2 or Beach Episode. Although Beach Episode may just be a mermaid rather than a siren. Despite the similar designs between the thesis film and The Temptress, the giant beast she is in the tongue of is different between the two. So it's safe to say that they're different sirens. It could take place in the same universe, but I couldn't possibly place it in the same timeline. Secondly, is of course the second video on the channel, Shaggy Anime Ending Theme 2. Do I have to explain why this one isn't canon? It's pretty obvious, I think. And then we have both the RuneScape Storytime and the BG3 Goes Too Far videos. Both of these are unrelated to the canon and are more just based on real-life situations, so we just don't count them. The most canon of the non-canon material, a real Dragon Ball GT in the mix, is the very Gnome Quest Christmas video. It's a cute video, for sure, but they make it pretty clear that it's outside of the timeline, as Cool says as much in the video itself.
This timeline ain't making no sense.
Hit 'em, Yarsum.
Also, as I was writing this video, the finale of the first season came out, so that's great. We are able to put it into this video. As I was coming to the studio to record this video, another video dropped. It did require me to make a complete rewrite of the middle of this timeline, simply because the information we get is conflicting. Regardless, I think this new timeline can work, but stick around to the end of the video for theories on what may come next for our barbarian friend in Season 2. So with the non-canon parts of the timeline handled, what exactly is the timeline? The Vorpal Blade, used by the Githyanki warrior in the video Mind Blade, is first started forging, as said by the warrior himself.
It was then bathed in hot lava for millennia.
The events of Wizard King's court take place here. Why? Well, as we know from Gnome Quest, all magic users were sentenced to death, and while this could be an unrelated kingdom unaffected by the ruling, the sheer amount of magic users tips me off this is taking place in the past. I assume this takes place not too long after the events of the court episode, We see a magic-using adventurer, which once more implies to me that we're before the ban, as adventurers are likely not exempt from the ruling, so even coming close to the Kingdom of Talandia would lead to her death. The first date that we have officially in the timeline is 15 years ago, when an evil necromancer and his army of the undead attack the Kingdom of Talandia. This leads to the death of the prince, and all spellcasters being sentenced to death, save for Abatrax, Sibis, and 4 gnome children who go into hiding right before it drops. At some point in the 15 years between the events of the intro and the episode proper of the first Gnome Quest episode, Sibis does go missing. He runs away, disappears, gets kidnapped, whatever, we don't know. Would be an evil advisor. It shows us the King of Talandia and his new advisor Snaketongue. The fact that the peasants refer to the church as new implies that this has to have happened recently and likely after the events of the 15 years ago from the start of Gnome Quest. You'll also notice this Gnome Druid. He'll be important later. Some point right after Evil Advisor is when Guy and Sword Guy is born. He looks like he's on the younger side, so that works out for the 15-year gap we have to work with. At some point prior to the events we see in the episodes, but likely post the magic user ban, we have the unseen events of the Barbarian's Chivo card. The likely first of these events would be reaching level 20. Based on the way Barbarian acts, it's safe to assume that this is the case, because we've never seen a weaker version of the Barbarian. He's always been quite strong. Similarly, it's safe to assume that at roughly the same time, or shortly after, the Barbarian also reached Enlightenment, as noticed on the Chivo card. He proceeds to pull every card from the deck of many things, move an immovable rod, and create the terrifying Goblin Centipede that we see in the finale episode. I'm also assuming this is around the time where Barbarian obtains his armor and
your little toothpick sword and your tiny baby shield will...
Obviously, we don't know the exact order of these events, but we know these likely take place in this time frame. Originally, the first video of the series was not the first video in this timeline, but the events of this episode highlight some important moments going forward. In this episode, we see Barbarian having defeated a lich. This leads to him eating the lich's false eye, which was actually his phylactery, and then sticking a stake through him and carrying him around.
Wriggling trophy for all to see.
What the f***, dude?
And considering we see him in subsequent episodes, we know they must take place after the events of this episode. Now, this episode was by far the most annoying episode in place. Originally, I thought it would obviously take place after Hearse of Strahd, thanks to the fact that Haggai and Brown Eye is unmarked during that episode. However, the events of Monster Mash make this very muddled. Like, legitimately, we see the witch create a potion of immortality, and based on what we are told in Monster Mash, we know that Barbarian has been giving this potion to his villains. This, of course, means that this must take place before everything else, excluding the Lich, considering we see the Lich very clearly on his back, and he does indeed speak.
Shit.
Why is Haggai and Brown Eye unmarked? I have no idea. Perhaps Barbarian just forgot. Otherwise, I have no clue. In this episode, we see Barbarian fight a Djinn, which is a type of genie. He then ends up making the genie wish for
Stone cold embrace.
which leads the Barbarian to perform a stone cold stunner on the Djinn. However, this does not kill him. He is then given the potion of immortality, or otherwise forced back into the lamp, as we see the lamp in later episodes, and the Dryad clearly says,
Oh, he got genie.
which means it must be the same Djinn. Although originally I thought it could be a different one. We also know this must take place before Hearse of Strahd because Mega's Djinn wish for death is marked on the Chivo card. In this episode, we see the Barbarian fight a Gorgon. Ostensibly, it's Medusa, as we see staring contest versus a Medusa marked on the bingo card. This is because he ends up turning the Medusa to stone by forcing her to stare at her own gaze and wet willies her, making her forever stuck in the pain and grossness of the wet willy of her final moments. At some point, Barbarian seemed to take the statue of Medusa as a trophy, because we see it in Dwarven Artism and the U2's figure. However, it seems like the League of Villains managed to obtain it as we see her in Monster Mash. This episode features the Red Dragon and the lore implications of collecting 7 Dragon Balls leading to a wish.
It cannot be! The legends are true!
We also know this episode has to take place before Ursa Strahd because Dragon Mount is marked off on his Chivos. We also know that this has to take place after Evil Advisor because we see the king and Snake Tongue,
So he's a little racist.
at the princess's birthday party. Also, the dragon got Potion of Immortality before his pinatification. This is perhaps the most important episode of the entire timelines, thanks to the Chivo sheet. This episode sees Barbarian face off against a Dracula. He manages to kill him mid-monologue and make breakfast on his smoldering corpse, both of which are on the Chivo sheet.
Starting to think I got all kind of easy with the breakfast, you know.
But despite its importance, there's not a lot to talk about, other than it taking place during Daylight Savings Time, which means it takes place somewhere in between late March and early November. Now, here in Arizona, we don't recognize Daylight Savings, but I'm well aware of it. This episode is our first canonical appearance of Kevin the Paladin, perhaps my second favorite character. In this episode, Kevin comes across an alicorn who will only allow the purest of souls to mount him. He forces Kevin to give up swearing, sexual activities, and alcohol, all of which he was fine with.
Yes, you are now perfectly
Pure.
But before he can mount the Pegasus, the barbarian leaps from the bushes and takes it as a mount. We know this takes place after Ursa Strahd, because Pegasus mount is unmarked on the card. Now, I'm unsure as to when exactly, but this obviously takes place after Ursa Strahd, because it mentions that he was almost killed in that episode. We're also introduced to Dinglemeyer, one of my favorite characters in the series. We also learn that the Barbarian is the one who designed this lair, as mentioned by Dinglemeyer in Monster Mash.
There's someone here to see you!
Oh, did Ginny show up?
No, it's the man who gave me the designs for your lair! He got past all your traps and minions!
Ding.
Big guy has an axe!
So there it!
So it makes sense that this lair is a Vampire Slayer's dream, as seen in both this episode and Monster Mash.
Oh, if a vampire slayers came into this lair, I'd be fucking toast! Look at this shit! I'm dead! Oh, I'm fucking dead! It's like you've created a vampire slayer playground, but it's my goddamn lair!
It seems like during these actions, the Barbarian made a few enemies, as we see a voodoo doll made in his likeness by what may be a cultist from the new church. The doll ripping off the face of this drow sorcerer is what he needs for his Cloak of Elven Kind, which is currently unmarked on the Chivo sheet, meaning this must take place post-Ursa Strahd. Although we don't see the lich on his back in the voodoo doll, it's safe to assume that the drow just didn't know about it. Forgive the shitty mic quality. I forgot to add that you can see the voodoo doll in the Barbarian's man cave in the later episodes, which means that this episode does have to be canon, hence why I'm including it in the video. This episode features a few new characters, specifically the warrior, the shopkeep, and the titular tiny man, all of which we never see again. Amongst the wares of the shopkeep is the Rod of Vibration, and what's more important for the timeline, a now shrunken Kevin. We know this has to take place after the Pegasus episode because Kevin has his chastity belt on, which only appeared after the Pegasus Oaths. Kevin meets his lady at some point because by the point in time we meet her in Chivalrous Paladin, Kevin is already calling her Milady. She seems to already have history with Brett, although Kevin doesn't seem to. The Gnome Druid makes his return in this POV, where he has kidnapped an elf woman and does some very creepy things towards her. We see the Rod of Vibration from the previous episode, so one can assume the Gnome obtained it from the ruins of the House of the Adventurer, and has kept it, as I doubt the Rod left the Gnome's house and ended up in the shopkeep's wares. This episode features the Banshee, who both tries to kill and possess Barbarian, both of which obviously fail. Barbarian turns Banshee into a set of bagpipes, which was a space on his Chivo sheet called Banshee Bagpipes, and considering it was unmarked in Hearse of Strahd, it's clear that this has to take place sometime afterwards. At some point post Hearse of Strahd, Barbarian makes a mimic urinal. As in a mimic that he turned into a urinal, we see this creature in his literal man cave during later episodes. Now, the Gnome Quest videos are not listed as part of the Dungeon Soup canon on the channel, but they have to be, as you'll see in a little bit. This episode features the story of 4 gnomes who have magic gifted to them by the sorcerer Ivatrax, but he is murdered before he can finish teaching them. This leads to their magic being a bit on the wild side. They manage to escape out of their city and to Talbot Town, where we get to our next episode. On their route to Talbot Town, the group run into a small dungeon where they fight against a siren. This is a different but similar siren to the one from the Siren's Ring. After defeating her, they obtain the Hat of Compliments, and find out that their ponies have been stolen.
Like we're heading to Talbot Town, boys. We've got a pony-stealing bitch to kill.
Leading them back to Talbot Town. When the group gets to Talbot Town, they find Fury and the Fiery, who has stolen their ponies. After causing chaos, they are arrested, but manage to escape and steal a carriage. All 3 of these episodes take place over the same day, hence their closeness. But upon stealing the carriage, they escape, and this is the last episode of Gnome Quest at the moment, but not the last time we'll see these characters. The Barbarian faces off against a Githyanki warrior with a massively enchanted Vorpal blade. During this fight, the blade shatters against the Barbarian's neck upon impact. This is because the blade had every enchantment known to man, including every bad enchantment.
It is not as good of a blade as you made it seem.
He is then reddened to a fine paste by the Barbarian's toothpick, and also a
Squirt of lemon.
as seen at the end of the 12-hour version. Kevin saves his lady from Brett at the orc camp and gets her oysters at the bar. When Brett pops back up, he takes her back to the camp behind his back. He initially doesn't want to chase after her until morning. In the background of the pub, we see the Gnome Quest gnomes with their new gear from the Temptress, meaning that this has to take place post-Gnome Quest. In this episode, the Barbarian meets Kevin, and the two go to save his lady from Brett. The Barbarian reveals that Kevin can deal damage and dole out justice without breaking his oaths. I'm assuming this is the same day as Chivalrous Paladin, if not the next day, considering the framing and the comments made by Brett and his lady. This is also the first time the Lich is referred to as his pet lizard, which also happens in Dwarven Artism.
Wait, so I've been meaning to ask, what's that on your back?
Oh, him? That's just my pet lizard. Good boy.
In this episode, we see the Gnome Druid again. This time, he was pretending to be a squirrel that becomes friends with an elf ranger. The druid is then shot by a goblin and left to die. This seemingly takes place in the Gnome Forest, considering the other animal friends are also seemingly Gnome Druids. I'm assuming and perhaps hoping that the Gnome Druid is dead after this, considering we never see anyone helping him, hence its late placement. Much like the Voodoo Doll video, I'm considering this as fully canon. We meet a dwarf with artism, creating statues for people. It's unknown if this dwarf also helped make the Vorpal blade, but he does have the same artism. Considering we see the squirt of lemon, the lich upon his back, and the statue of Medusa, we know it has to take place later in the timeline than these episodes, and likely after my blade, since how else would Barbarian know to go to a dwarf like this? At some point, the Barbarian has done 2 very interesting things. One is making infinite Tarrasque jerky, which I was surprised was not going to be a full episode, but somehow he did that. Similarly, he also mazed the Lady of Pain, meaning that he trapped the Lady of Pain in her own maze. We know he did these things because they are marked off on his Chivo sheet, but we see both the Tarrasque skull and the Lady of Pain mask in his man cave during dinner date, with Lady of Pain mask also making an appearance in Beach episode, meaning these events have to have happened prior to these 2 episodes. We finally get a return of Snake Tongue, where we see his cult summoning demons and trying to sacrifice both Kevin and his former lady. Considering Kevin acts cold towards her, I have to assume this takes place post their breakup in Barbecue Arc. Also, it's worth noting the Barbarian is seen creeping in the window in the background, likely because he's here to save his friend Kev, which leads into... I like to believe that when Barbarian saved Kev, he then decided to take him to the beach the next day, because they're now good friends. After the two run into a mermaid, Barbarian has to save Kev. This leads to them fighting and defeating the mermaid siren and mounting her on the wall, as we see in Monster Mash. We also know this counts as mermaid mount on the Chivo sheet as well. We also see Barbarian's man cave here, where Kev and Barbarian play Dungeons and Dragons together with a song that deserves to be loved.
Ocean friends, Bob and Paladin, basking on the sand, found the shell most grand. Ocean friends, their journey led them to the open sea on a boys' trip.
In this episode, Barbarian has a date with a woman who turns out to be a succubus. During this time, he manages to surprise attack her, reveal he's put some levels at a bard, and also break and eat her heart, as seen on the Chivo sheet. The reason this falls after Beach episode, despite the man cave first appearing here, is because in this wide shot you can see the image from the end of Beach episode hanging up on the wall, meaning this must take place after that photo was taken and placed upon the wall at the end of Beach episode. We see an unnamed peasant wandering the forest when they run into a tree offering a juicy apple. This is actually...
I'm an evil dryad, obviously!
He was trying to do very evil things to the peasant. However, before he can be killed, Barbarian arrives and saves the peasant. He then proceeds to make a table out of the dryad and make pancakes. Notably, he also makes genie tea, which is how the dryad knows he got genie. We also see that dryad dining set is unmarked on the Chivo sheet, so it's safe to assume that this happens here. I assume this takes place so late because we see the same genie lamp in his man cave in the previous two episodes, and as such, I assume he had it sitting away for a while. This is the latest video, and was literally uploaded the day before I filmed this video. It seems to be pretty disconnected overall, but we do know that Guy is aware of the Barbarian.
Did you see how strong I was? Felt like the Barbarian for a second there.
In your dreams.
Maybe we'll meet someday.
Who you need to meet is a doctor.
Meaning he has been around for a while. Whether this is because of Monster Mash or not is unclear, but I think it's clear he's pretty well known by this point. In this episode, we catch up with all the previous villains in the Vampire's New Lair from, well, Vampire's New Lair. The Dryad is still a dining table, however I originally thought he was completely eaten by Barbarian, and it's revealed that he only took a chunk out of it. The Medusa statue, the burnt face of the hag, the now mounted mermaid, the goop remains of my blade, the stitched up body of the dragon, and the still broken succubus, which obviously means this must take place relatively soon after dinner date since she hasn't starved yet.
The f*** is that?
The succubus survives by draining the essence of its victims. Without essence, they'll starve.
Oh no.
And with all those broken bones, safe to say your sucking days are gone.
Barbarian appears in the lair and finishes them all off for not changing their ways. This also reveals he must not be fully human, as he consumes Dracula and destroys the rest with his first ever on-screen Barbarian rage. At the end, we see the Goblin Centipede that was referenced in the Chivo sheet. The Lich seems to have accepted his fate as an ally of the Barbarian, and we see Chivo's Part 2, which is what the next part of this video will be talking about. So now, officially, the final episode in the timeline, and the most recent episode having released about 2 hours ago as of recording, is I Have No Luck and I Must Scream, where the Barbarian faces off against a leprechaun in Games of Chance. And while it has references to both Steamed Hams and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, obviously, it doesn't really have anything else to shift the timeline in any notable way. So it very clearly takes place at the end of the timeline because 100% Luck Potion, or Luck Potion 100% Leprechaun, whatever you want to call it, was on the Chivo's 2.0 list, which means it has to take place after Monster Mash. And that's it. Boom! Surprise, people! This is not just a timeline, this is also my theories for the future. Originally it wasn't going to be, but the new Chivo sheet has made it so that I have so many ideas. Now, of course, we have no idea what's coming in the future for either the Barbarian or the rest of the Dungeon Soup channel. But we do get a potential hint through the Chivos 2.0 list. Here's what I think is most likely to get a full episode based on what I think has the best story potential. Skin Werewolf with a Silver Spoon. I think this could be an episode, but I think it's more likely it will only be referenced in the background like the Cloak of Elvenkind was. Haunt Sleep Paralysis Demon. This is such a funny idea. The idea of haunting your own sleep paralysis demon is really funny to me, and I think it's ripe for some barbarian antics. However, as far as I know, it's not a D&D monster, so I could see it being skipped. Steal the Devil's Soul. I could see this happening as well, as it fits right in line with the characterization of the barbarian up to this point. Maybe it also features Kev in some way. Giant Pile Driver. The fact that this is fully capitalized and has an extra note attached tells me that we will likely see Barbarian Pile Driver a giant at some point. And considering he already Stone Cold Sundered a Jin, anything is possible. Burn Down Gnome Forest. Please. I must see this episode. It feels like a culmination of too many storylines not to do. Thumb Wrestle Monkey's Paw. Another one I think could very easily be a fun episode, although I could also just see the Monkey's Paw added to his stash in the man cave. Give the Fates their prophecy. This feels in line with Barbarian, so I could see this being a full episode. Topple Doppel. This is one of only 3 episodes on here I think are guaranteed. Seeing the Barbarian fight his doppelganger is too good of an episode premise to ignore. I would be surprised if this doesn't happen. Daring Contest versus a Beholder. I could see this one happening. The Beholder is a pretty iconic D&D villain, so it would make sense to do at least one episode based on them. Krampus Christmas Special. This is the second one I think is almost guaranteed to happen. Christmas specials are very common in this kind of stuff, and I could see Krampus Christmas Special being an episode that comes out in December of this year. Pass the Torch. Obviously, this is the Season 2 finale. Now, who will he pass the torch to? Well, likely Kev. As we see in Barbecue Orc, Kevin is starting to learn the ways of the Barbarian, so I could see him as the torchbearer. Alternatively, Guy could be the torchbearer, considering he seems to look up to Barbarian, although he might be dead after headbutting his sword.
No, really. Please see a doctor.
Headbutt, bam!
So obviously I'm adding this after having watched I Have No Luck and I Must Scream, and I must say I was not anticipating the Luck Potion 100% Leprechaun to be one of the Chivos that got a full episode. I'm quite happy it did, but it was not on my list, as you can see from the previous segment, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I called it. So I am 0 for 1 right now. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed this dumb little project that no one but me will care about. If you liked it, like it, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. And always, remember to subscribe to Dungeon Soup. Their link will be down in the description. And remember that both I and they have a Patreon, so check it out below if you feel like it. My Patreon has plenty of fun stuff on it. Full, unedited reactions, timelines for what's going to happen next on the channel. All kinds of fun stuff. I think you guys will like the Patreon. Subscribe to the Patreon. We're going to see a lot of new stuff on there once I get subscribers on there. Also, pup dates. You're going to get dog updates. That's going to be fun, isn't it? Bye!